This is a testimony from someone who experienced a near-death experience, known as NDE. At the time, I was 25 years old and worked at a brokerage firm. I wasn't into things like belief or faith. In fact, I had never thought about it. I was very materialistic. When it happened, I had just gotten married and lived in a small town in New Mexico. I had a very bad cold, and that day I felt really ill. I went to a hospital, and in the preliminary exams, they saw that my blood pressure was extremely low. I was rushed to the emergency room and medicated. Right after taking the medication, I was placed under observation. I lay there looking at the ceiling, feeling very weak. I turned my head looking for my wife, and immediately I began to feel an immense sense of peace. I barely had time to turn my head to her and say, "I'm going," and from that moment on, what the doctors told me is that I had a cardiac arrest. My heart stopped. From that moment on, I experienced something extraordinary. The curious thing is that even though 20 years have passed, the memory is still very vivid in my mind. I felt my being expand, an overwhelming sense of deep peace, total freedom, and I entered a bright space of perfect white. I have never seen such a dazzling, perfect white. It was a moment of immense joy, and I felt the most profound love one could imagine. And I felt that I was part of that immense love. It was true love. The extreme sense of freedom was wonderful. It was boundless freedom, pure and total freedom. There was no suffering, pain, anguish, or sadness, and time did not exist. That was the feeling. There was no time, no past or future, and the feeling was that this was reality and truth. I realized I was not alone. There was a tremendous communion with an unlimited number of beings who were there, with whom I was deeply connected. I was part of this unity, as if my individuality, which was me, formed part of a whole that was everything. It was a single unity made up of a multitude of people, but at the same time, these people were experiencing sensations and situations in which I participated, and they participated in mine. It's hard to explain. I felt something very special beyond this deep love. This pure love, I felt that I was part of a higher being, to which I belonged. Those were truly spectacular moments because there, I understood many things about what was happening or had happened. There were no genders, no good or bad, no women or men, small or large. It was a single identity. This sensation remains forever. The doctors told me it was only a few minutes, from the moment my heart stopped to when they revived me. But in that moment, in that place, as I said before, there was no time. It was immense, as if thousands of lives passed in a single moment, and you were living them and had already lived them. I also felt that there were people, beings from before, now, and later. Since there was no time, nor any limits, everything was there. I could communicate perfectly with other beings whom we would call from the past and others who would be from the future. They were there. This communication was a real communion of exchange and, above all, a communion of information. There was unlimited information, and everyone had access to it. It was a world of possibilities. Due to the limitation of language, it is hard to find words to convey the sensations, and they do not reflect the richness of what was lived there. It is something limitless that needs to be translated in an unlimited way, which is difficult. Suddenly, I felt that I needed to return. The curious thing is that it wasn't about leaving there, but rather coming back. It's hard to explain, but the fact is that, as I left that place, I was still there, but the material part needed to come back here, even while I was still there. In other words, it was as if my true self was still there, and we here. were a kind of hologram with a specific purpose, limited to that objective. But the foundation is over there. To explain it differently, I felt I needed to return to the consciousness from which I had never left. And I resisted because I didn't want to leave that place. That place of true love and freedom was so unlimited that coming back here seemed absurd. I made an effort not to return until I understood that my time hadn't come yet, and I needed to return. It was a difficult moment because, at the same time, I understood that the one asking me to return was myself. At a certain point, while I was still there, I started to feel and notice that I was hooked up to wires, as if they had placed tons on my chest, and a nurse was punching me. My first instinct was to fight back at the nurse, saying, "What are you doing, you crazy woman?" Obviously, I couldn't do that because I was physically exhausted. From that moment, I returned and regained consciousness here. I had a tremendous headache, which I attributed to the mental effort of trying not to return. A few days later, the doctors explained to me what had happened. I didn't know it, but I had a ventricular hypertrophy in my heart, something they call athlete's heart in the sports world. Under normal conditions, this provides more strength and endurance, but the heart is bigger. The right side was almost double the size of the left side. Before this experience, I never had any curiosity about self-knowledge. Today, I understand that no one explains the need for self-awareness, to know what is happening inside you, what your inner hurts are, which unresolved stories are still affecting you, and which reactions are caused by this lack of awareness. The fact is that after this event, I began to think in a completely different way. However, this desire for knowledge or self-awareness didn't fully develop until many years later. I was working at a brokerage firm, a time when spirituality had no place. Everything was very material. The same was true for my circle of friends, including my wife, who also didn't understand what I was going through. I came to realize that these experiences have their own time to be explained and have their audience. You can't convince someone about this. There's simply a time to meet the right people, a time to talk about these things. And it must be done with great respect for those who don't believe. What I really understood was that all of this happened for a purpose. I somehow realized that I had to return because the reason I was here wasn't finished yet. What I felt was that returning here was part of two things. One was to fulfill an objective I had established up there, which is why I made a distinction. The me up there uses the me down here to enrich its spirit and energy through life experiences. That was pure energy, beauty, and love. These three words are similar, and energy is knowledge, information, and data. These data, through our experiences here, serve a purpose: to learn, to enrich oneself energetically with life experiences, and to nourish your soul or spirit, whatever you prefer to call it. The second point is to pass this on to someone, not necessarily to many people, but at least to one. This transmission should happen naturally, without imposition. Simply, someone needs to hear it, and when you feel that need, you communicate. You can tell if the person is absorbing it or not. If not, the communication stops. It's interesting because, in this desire not to impose the information and let it flow naturally, I felt that when I returned, I wasn't coming back alone. I felt as though I was surrounded by a lot of light that enveloped me to fulfill this purpose. These matters are hard to interpret at the spiritual level which society currently finds itself, which can be dangerous, as you may be seen as crazy or as someone who makes things up. There could be two types of beings of light helping. One in my immediate surroundings, who may be supporting me right now, and others like your partner, or anyone else with special vibration shuo, also here too. Help in ways we sometimes don't understand, but that truly happen. Many people help without you realizing it. Many have marked a before and after in your life, and you may not be aware of it. These people are also beings of light here to help. I felt that my return had to do not only with fulfilling the purpose set by my higher self. We are here to support, help, share, and give ourselves in some way. The word give means to offer everything you can for the benefit of a collective or a specific person. This gradually grew in terms of consciousness, and from that day, my being completely changed, evolving in a totally different direction as I felt and understood what I had experienced. What I lived was something unlimited, and it's difficult to understand because we have limited minds. So all we get are small fragments of knowledge that you develop over time. Today, I dedicate myself exclusively to helping people through meditation, prayer, and self-awareness, going within and seeing what hurts you have that are holding you back in life. You need to go there, and it takes a lot of courage because you see really complicated, difficult things that are part of your own life. And it takes determination to look at yourself and face these dark parts, and meditation together with prayer helps a lot. Meditation puts you in completely different vibrations, which open your perspective. And on some occasions, in a deep state of meditation, you can even partially connect with that space where, mechanically, through cardiac arrest, I manage to enter. Prayer places you in the hands of the Creator, who protects and renews your strength. Through this mechanism, by entering that space, you can solve problems that you cannot understand. This same knowledge led me to see that it's possible to live another life, or that there is a totally different way of living. People, whether we want to or not, are interconnected. Our energy affects another person's energy, even if you're not speaking with them, and therefore, words are not even necessary. I don't know if this has ever happened to you and you see someone who's feeling down, and when you approach them with care and love, give them a hug, and that person calms down without you saying anything. You've communicated through energy. A strong energy, a powerful energy, can help an energy that is low at a given moment. And I'm aware that this is necessary. From then on, and from now on in this new phase of my life, I consider hugs to be a miracle of life. There are people who reject hugs, and they reject them because their vibration is so rigid that an open vibration hurts them. So, they can't accept a hug. And maybe you've noticed this, or the opposite. To open energies feel the need to hug. It's the typical case of someone you've never met, but you already like them, or the opposite, don't connect with them, and later you find out you are right. But first, it's necessary to know and heal yourself, because if you're not well, you can't transmit anything positive to others. If someone who is distressed tries to help another person, the only result will be to distressed people. I visited someone who was going through many problems and had a lot of fear. We talked, I hugged him, and days later, his wife asked me what I had said, because she had noticed that he had a different look and was very happy. I don't know, I replied. Maybe I transmitted something good to him, and I truly believe that these things are good, and that's what we are here for. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and share this incredible experience.